Last time we uh, read about psychological time, clock time, and also ways and strategies to move deeply into the now. And also we read about the joy of being, the being dimension and the form dimension. So instead of focusing our attention in past and future and deriving our identity from there, in other words, instead of deriving our identity from the mind, from the thoughts, which are always about the past and future, Eckhart is proposing us to focus our attention on the present moment, to the now, which is the timeless dimension, and it is the entry to the spiritual dimension of consciousness, which is the being dimension. So that is our real identity. Because of our identification with thoughts and this body, we get stuck and trapped in a continuous flow of thoughts, which almost happens all the time, our thinking. So there is always this thinker who is thinking all the time, and it is very compulsive and repetitive and continuous. So the normal state of consciousness, or you can say the unconscious state of living, is to be trapped in this thinking mind all the time, which is always speculating about the future, of how the future will be, or it is always thinking about the past, regretting the past, and or taking some validation or praise from the past, whatever experiences that have happened in the past. So the ego, which is the mind made sense of self, is either living in the past or in the future. In other words, is living in the thoughts, because it is made up of thoughts. The ego is a thought, actually. It's an image of self, a psychological thought in the mind. So that is how it lives. It has to continuously think and identify with objects, either thoughts or physical objects. So it has to continuously think in order to survive and expand or spread. So that is its way of functioning. And it's a very insane way of functioning, because it creates a lot of suffering and pain. It creates unreal, very foggy, uh, you can say, imaginations or perceptions which actually doesn't exist in real life. So, and thus it creates a lot of anxiety, stress, conflict, and pain. So we are, as a spiritual practice, we are trying to step away from this identification with thoughts and free the consciousness from the trap of the mind and the emotions, the body, the pain body that Eckhart says. Emotions and thoughts, they go hand in hand. They are ally, partners in crime. So we are trying to free the consciousness which is trapped in this identification. We are trying to free ourselves from this trap by bringing all our attention into the being dimension, which is in the present moment. So the moment we bring our attention to the present moment, somehow this flow of thoughts break, and we are able to access the being, the spiritual dimension, and then we experience peace and harmony and joy and love and compassion. All these are synonymous to each other. They all mean the same. Sometimes you can say, I feel a lot of good energy. That is also one way to put it. So our job as a spiritual practitioner is to always be present in the moment. That is the only real practice that Eckhart says. Okay, I will read something from last time that we read, few passages, and then we can continue reading. We are in chapter 3, moving deeply into the now. I hope you can see the screen and hear me properly.
Yeah, it works.
It works. Okay. That's good to know. I'm just trying to see. Hold on. Okay, sorry. So a quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness. Question is, I have had glimpses of this state of freedom from mind and time that you describe, but past and future are so overwhelmingly strong that I cannot keep them out for long. So Eckhart replies, the time-bound mode of consciousness is deeply embedded in the human psyche. But what we are doing here is part of a profound transformation that is taking place in the collective consciousness of the planet and beyond. The awakening of consciousness from the dream of matter, form, and separation. The ending of time. We are breaking mind patterns that have dominated human life for eons. Mind patterns that have created unimaginable suffering on a vast scale. I am not using the word evil. It is more helpful to call it unconsciousness or insanity. Question. This breaking up of the old mode of consciousness, or rather unconsciousness, is it something we have to do or will it happen anyway? I mean, is this change inevitable? Answer. That's a question of perspective. The doing and the happening is, in fact, a single process because you are one with the totality of consciousness. You cannot separate the two. But there is no absolute guarantee that humans will make it. The process isn't inevitable or automatic. Your cooperation is an essential part of it. However, you look at it, it is a quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness, as well as our only chance of survival as a race. I'll just take a break here. Uh, are we understanding what Eckhart is saying here? A lot of people say that it's destiny and it is written in the future that we will make it, and something will happen in the future that will save the humankind. Some avatar will come and he will save us all. So what Eckhart is saying here is that that is not entirely true because what we do right now will determine what the future will be. So that from our part, the doing is very important. If we don't live consciously now, there is it's highly unlikely that we will make it as a race. So that's what we have to understand. Okay, I'll continue reading. The joy of being, to alert you that you have allowed yourself to be taken over by psychological time, you can use a simple criterion. Ask yourself this: is there joy, ease, and lightness in what I am doing? If there isn't, then time is covering up the present moment, and life is perceived as a burden or a struggle. If there is no joy, ease, or lightness in what you're doing, it does not necessarily mean that you need to change what you're doing. It may be sufficient to change the how. How is always more important than what. See if you can give much more attention to the doing than to the result that you want to achieve through it. Give your fullest attention to whatever the moment presents. This implies that you also completely accept what is, because you cannot give your full attention to something and at the same time resist it. As soon as you honor the present moment, all unhappiness and struggle dissolve, and life begins to flow with joy and ease. When you act out of present moment awareness, whatever you do becomes imbued with a sense of quality, care, and love, even the most simple action. So, would you like to continue now reading?
Yeah, I can continue.
Yeah.
So do you not be concerned with the fruit of your action? Just give attention to the action itself. The fruit will come on its own accord. This is a powerful spiritual practice. In the Bhagavad Gita, one of the oldest and most beautiful spiritual teachings in existence, non-attachment of the fruit of your action is called Karma Yoga. It is described as the path of consecrated action. When the compulsive striving away from the now ceases, the joy of being flows into everything you do. The moment your action turns to the now, you feel the presence, the stillness, the peace. You no longer depend on the future for fulfillment and satisfaction. You don't look to it for salvation. Therefore, you are not attached to the results. Neither failure nor success has the power to change your inner state of being. You have found the life underneath your life situation. In this absence of psychological time, your sense of self is derived from being, not from your personal past. Therefore, the psychological need to be anything other than who you are already is no longer there. In the world, on the level of your life situation, you may indeed become wealthy, knowledgeable, successful, free of that or of this or that. But in the deeper dimension of being, you are complete, you are whole now. In that state of wholeness, would we still be able or willing to pursue external goals? Of course, but you will not have illusionary expectations that anything or anybody in the future will save you or make you happy. As far as your life situation is concerned, there may be things to be attained or acquired. That's the world of form, of gain and loss. Yet, on a deeper level, you're already complete. And when you realize that, there's a playful, joyous energy behind what you do. Being free of psychological time, you no longer pursue your goals with grim determination, driven by fear, anger, discontent, or the need to become someone. Nor will you remain inactive through fear of failure, which to the ego is loss of self. When your deeper sense of self is derived from being, when you are free from becoming as a psychological need, neither your happiness nor your sense of self depends on the outcome. And so there's freedom from fear. You don't seek permanency where it cannot be found. In the world of form, of gain and loss, birth and death, you don't demand that situation, conditions, places, or people should make you happy and then suffer when you don't live up to your expectations. Anything is honored, but nothing matters. From forms are born and die, yet you are aware of the eternal underneath the forms. You know that nothing real can be threatened. When this is your state of being, how can you not succeed? You have succeeded already.
Thank you. I think this is the end of chapter now, chapter 3. Let's take a moment of silence to contemplate, and then we can discuss. Bring your awareness to this moment. To the now. Be aware of your thoughts and emotions. Observe their movement. From a distance. Don't think about it. Don't have to take it too seriously. Just let them come and go. Use your sense perceptions, your body, touch, feel, hearing, sight, smell. To bring your attention to the now. Whatever this moment is offering or presenting, allow it to happen without any resistance. Observe, listen, see. This is what it is. Okay. We just finished chapter 3 for people who came late. I don't know whether you heard the reading or not. If you want to hear it again, we can read it again, what we just read. Or I can just summarize of what we just read and then we can discuss. So what we are trying to understand here, what Eckhart is saying, is one very important um, teaching that popped up in this reading was Karma Yoga, a reference to Bhagavad Gita, which is an Indian spiritual text. And so the concept of Karma Yoga, or what Eckhart is saying, consecrated action, means to act without any desire of an expected fruit in the future, of how things should be, or how I want, or what I want to achieve through this action. So without any desire or ceasing any desire of future fruit, we perform our actions. This is the path of Karma Yoga. And this is a very popular word in spirituality. You will hear this word many a times, especially in the Indian philosophy. And here in Auroville also people speak about this word. So if you have any questions around this Karma Yoga, you can ask, we can discuss. In Eckhart's explanation, what it actually means. What Eckhart is trying to say here is, I'll quickly summarize, that if you derive your sense of self or identity from your being dimension, from your spiritual dimension, then there is no need to seek any gratification or fulfillment or validation from anything that is outside, from any work that you do, for any person that you meet or have relationship with, from any object or anything or any place in this world. So the moment we find inner fulfillment in our being, in ourself, all this seeking and chasing the world for fulfillment and happiness drops. In other words, our mind activity drops because the mind is always going to the future and planning things in order to achieve something, to get some kind of fulfillment. That is the egoic mind, right? In the mind, it is continuously thinking of things. I'm not saying that we don't stop, we stop doing or stop taking action. In the physical world, we are still doing something. But the mind is always racing ahead, in time, in order to imagine things the way it wants the outcome to be, or it is thinking of the past. It should have been like that. I could have done this, I could have done that, then things would have been different. I'm just giving one example how the mind thinks, or rather how the egoic mind thinks. So we are trying to free the consciousness from this kind of thinking, and drop this idea of fulfillment that one may seek from the world. Instead of that, because it can never fulfill you, because this world of form is very unstable. You will achieve something, you will not achieve many things. You will succeed, you will fail. This will keep on happening. It will not um, remain at one state. So it will keep fluctuating, and that is what our experience has been. If you really look at your life, so instead of relying on the world to make us happy, just drop all the expectations. Just be with yourself and find the fulfillment within. That is the fundamental spiritual practice. Find the fulfillment with your own self and realize that the world cannot make you happy. This is the fundamental, in 2 lines, I would like to summarize what Eckhart is trying to say. And that can only happen when we are completely in the now, in the present moment, because in this present moment, in the now, we gain access to our own self. Otherwise, we are always in the mind and we are drifting away from ourselves. Right? So try to be in the present moment as much as you can and see that you are already whole and complete inside. There is nothing wrong in this being dimension, in this being, in this self. Nothing that you can add from outside will make it complete, or nothing that you do, or nothing that has been taken away from you will reduce something from here. It is independent, or it is not part of this world of form, this world of movement and things. It is not part of that. It is separate from that. It is a different dimension. It's a dimension of formlessness. So if you come there, then you are not gaining anything, you are not losing anything. That is what we have to realize. And in that, there is already a sense of joy. The moment you come there, there is a sense of fulfillment there, which is what everybody is looking for, I believe. We are looking for this completeness and fulfillment, this sense of peace that comes with the with this beingness, with this self that we are trying to discover. So the whole spiritual literature and this whole spiritual methods and techniques and universe is to bring us to this dimension. Actually, there is nothing to be done outside which can fulfill you or which can promise you happiness or joy. That one thing that we have to realize. So we have to step away from this false expectation and false desire and enter the being dimension. This is what I want to say. This is what we have just read. One question is saying that in this state, are we still able to pursue our external goals? Of course, Eckhart is saying yes. But we do things in that state, but it becomes like karma yoga. You still do things, but you're not projecting yourself in future. You are in the present and you're doing things. That is how I would like to put. So you're doing with a feeling of joy. Your mind is not splitting away and going in past and future. So you don't experience nervousness or anxiety or sadness in this moment while you do things. While you may still do things in order to achieve something in the physical world. But you realize that in time it will happen. In the clock time. It will take time to gain something in the physical world, sure. But your sense of fulfillment doesn't depend on it. If you get it or not get it, Doesn't matter actually. So I like this phrase that Eckhart made. You honor everything in the physical world, but it doesn't matter actually too much. Don't take it too seriously. It may happen, it may not happen. Fine. You're fine any which ways. So um, to see that you're already okay with or without what you achieve or not is what is the goal of spirituality, right? So this is what we are trying to discover and understand. Any questions? Anything? Anyone wants to say anything? No? If you don't have any question or anything to share, then we will continue reading. The next chapter we will start. Okay, we'll start chapter 4 now. It's called Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. That's chapter 4. I hope everybody can see my screen. Who would like to read? Pranav and Ashish?
Okay.
Yes, Pranav. Please go ahead.
Mind strategies for avoiding the now. Loss of now, the core delusion. Even if I completely accept that ultimately time is an illusion, what difference is that going to make in my life? I still have to live in a world that is completely dominated by time. Intellectual agreement is just another belief and won't make much difference to your life. To realize this truth, you need to live in. When every cell of your body is so present that it feels vibrant with life. And when you can feel that life every moment as a joy of being, then it can be said that you are free of time. But I still have to pay the bills tomorrow, and I'm still going to grow old and die just like everybody else. So, how can I ever say that I am free of time? Tomorrow's bills are not the problem. The resolution of the physical body is not the problem. Loss of now is the problem, or rather, the core delusion that turns a mere situation, event, or emotion into a personal problem and into suffering. Loss of now is a loss of being. To be free of time is to be free of the psychological need of past for your identity and future for your fulfillment. It presents the most profound transformation of consciousness that you can imagine. In some rare cases, this shift in consciousness happens dramatically and radically once and for all. When it does, it usually comes about through total surrender in the midst of intense suffering. Most people, however, have to work at it. When you have had your first few glimpses of the timeless state of consciousness, you begin to move back and forth between the dimensions of time and presence. First, you become aware of just how rarely your attention is truly in the now, but to know that you are not present is a great success. That knowing is presence, even if initially it only lasts for a couple of seconds of clock time before it is lost again. Then With increasing frequency, you choose to have the focus of your consciousness in the present moment rather than in the past or future. And whether you realize that you had lost the now, you are able to stay in it for just for a couple of seconds, but for a longer period, as perceived from the can't see.
External perspective of clock time.
Okay. So before you are firmly established in a state of presence, which is to say, before you are fully conscious, you shift back and forth for a while between the consciousness and unconsciousness, between the state of presence and state of mind identification. You lose the now and you return to it again and again. Eventually, presence becomes your predominant state. For most people, presence is experienced either never at all or only accidentally and briefly on rare occasion without being recognized for what it is. Most humans alternate not between consciousness and unconsciousness, but only between different levels of unconsciousness. Ordinary unconsciousness and deep unconsciousness. What do you mean by different levels of unconsciousness? As you probably know, in sleep, you constantly move between the phases of dreamless sleep and a dream state. Similarly, in wakefulness, most people only shift between ordinary unconsciousness and deep unconsciousness. What I call ordinary unconsciousness means being identified with your thought processes and emotions, your reactions, desires, and aversions. It is most people's normal state. In that state, you are run by the egoic mind and you are unaware of being. It is a state not of acute pain or unhappiness, but of an almost continuous flow, low level of unease, discontent, boredom, and nervousness, a kind of background static. You may not realize this because it is so much a part of normal living, just as you are not aware of the continuous low background noise, such as the hum of an air conditioner until it stops. When it suddenly does stop, there is a sense of relief. Many people use alcohol, drugs, sex, food, work, television, or even shopping as an anesthetics in an unconscious attempt to remove the basic unease. When this happens, an activity that might be very enjoyable if used in moderation becomes imbued with compulsive and addictive quality. And all that is ever achieved through it is extremely short-lived symptom relief.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to continue? Ashish?
नहीं मैं 5 मिनट ये I'll be away for 5 minutes. I'll be back after 5 minutes.
Okay, then I will continue. Leonie, you want to read? Sorry, I did not ask you.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I will read them. The unease of ordinary unconsciousness turns into the pain of deep unconsciousness, a state of more acute and more obvious suffering or unhappiness. When things go wrong, when the ego is threatened, or there is a major challenge, threat, or loss, real or imagined, in your life situation or conflict in a relationship, it is an intensified version of ordinary unconsciousness. Different from it, not in kind, but in degree. In ordinary unconsciousness, habitual resistance to or denial of what is creates the unease and discontent that most people accept as normal living. When this resistance becomes intensified through some challenge or threat to the ego, it brings up intense negativity such as anger, acute fear, aggression, depression, and so on. Deep unconsciousness often means that the pain body has been triggered and that you have become identified with it. Physical violence would be impossible without deep unconsciousness. It can also occur easily whenever and wherever a crowd of people or even an entire nation generates a negative collective energy field. The best indicator of your level of consciousness is how you deal with life's challenges when they come. Through those challenges, an already unconscious person tends to become more deeply unconscious, and a conscious person more intensely conscious. You can use a challenge to awaken you, or you can allow it to pull you into even deeper sleep. The dream of ordinary unconsciousness then turns into a nightmare. If you cannot be present even in normal circumstances, such as when you're sitting alone in a room, walking in the woods, or listening to someone, then you certainly won't be able to stay conscious when something goes wrong, or you are faced with difficult people or situations, with loss or the threat of loss. You will be taken over by a reaction, which ultimately is always some form of fear, and pulled into deep unconsciousness. Those challenges are your tests. Only the way in which you deal with them will show you and others where you are at as far as your state of consciousness is concerned. Not how long you can sit with your eyes closed or what visions you see. So it is essential to bring more consciousness into your life in ordinary situations when everything is going relatively smoothly. In this way, you grow in presence power. It generates an energy field in you and around you of a high vibrational frequency. No unconsciousness, no negativity, no discord or violence can enter that field and survive, just as darkness cannot survive in the presence of light. When you learn to be the witness of your thoughts and emotions, which is an essential part of being present, you may be surprised when you first become aware of the background static of ordinary unconsciousness and realize how rarely, if ever, you're truly at ease within yourself. On the level of your thinking, you will find a great deal of resistance in the form of judgment, discontent, and mental projection away from the now. On the emotional level, there will be an undercurrent of unease, tension, boredom, or nervousness. Both are aspects of the mind in its habitual resistance mode. Okay, let's take a pause of silence and contemplate. Do you have any questions or any remarks? Anything that you want to share? I'm sure many of us would relate to what we just read. I am relating to it because sometimes things do get challenging, a lot of hurdles and obstacles that you experience with respect to your work and people, so and so on. And then in those situations, your mind just loses your cool, and then your emotions are also are not very conducive or are not listening to you. They just take you over. You become angry, very reactive. Uh, so this happens with me also sometimes when people don't behave very weirdly or wrongly in our definition of right and wrong. See, that is what it is, and they don't behave according to your expectations. That is what I want to, how I would like to put it. So then something gets disturbed in you, and it happens. So what Eckhart is saying is a very important thing. Now I want all of you to pay attention to this. When things go wrong on the outside, at that time it is slightly difficult to keep yourself cool and calm. So when things are not going wrong, when things are all right, and more or less you are happy in your life, at those life situations, we need to practice presence and staying in the being dimension. Practice as much as you can to stay in the present moment, to be with yourself, because in those moments it is easy to practice presence. So we have to develop, see, all we have to do is to develop this habit of staying present and to stay with your being and not get completely occupied in the mind, in our thoughts. That is the practice, actually, essentially. So we need to practice that. So when things are easy on the outside, we are not bothered too much by people or life situations, then it is easy to practice. So practice during those times. Develop a habit to staying in the present moment. When you are with people, it is easy to do that sometimes, because then you're talking with someone and you're doing something, there's some activity going on. So your mind doesn't drift away anywhere. So at that time, do it, practice presence, completely stay in the now with all your attention. When you're alone also, try to stay in whatever you are doing or wherever you are. You must be doing something, right? So we need to develop this habit, and only with continuous practice we can uh, stay connected to our being when things are not happening according to our plans, when things go wrong apparently. And then even at those moments we need to practice. So eventually at every moment of our life we need to realize that this is only at a surface level and we should not react too seriously to it. So it is only when the ego gets hurt, when the ego um, is not when the flow of the ego and the expectations and the desires of the ego gets broken or gets challenged by life, then we start to panic. So that could be a good entry point into the being dimension, because that is how the ego also breaks. So sometimes challenges and problems that are happening with us can push us towards ourselves, to our being, because at those moments the ego breaks. So we need to use those moments as well when things are not happening properly outside. Use those moments also to realize one very simple fact, that this world is very fleeting in nature. Things are not in your control completely. How people will react or behave or act in this world is under a lot of factors. There are a lot of external factors that is beyond our control, actually. So to realize that I cannot have everything according to my own wish, and I cannot get everything the way I want, is a very fundamental realization. When we don't realize this, then we face problems and hurdles in our life, and then we feel pain. So pain is an indicator, it's an indicator to us, it's a sign to us that, boss, you are in your egoic mind right now. Step away from your egoic mind. You have taken your egoic mind and this world too seriously. You have drifted away from yourself. So those are the moments when we have to realize that we have to get back to ourselves, and then again continue with the spiritual practice of meditation. So when you are suffering, when you are in pain or in some kind of problem, it's a good thing, if you ask me. It is bringing you some news from your psychological world, and body is just reacting to what we are thinking, actually. So we need to get hold of our psychological world. That is what we have to do. So the only real solution is to practice presence all the time. Be in the now. There is no problem at all. There is no problem in this life. If you are completely in the now, there is no problem. Remove all identification with form, whatever identity you have assumed in your head, and whatever attachment you have assumed through that identity to objects and people. Remove all those layers. Don't take it too seriously. Come back to your consciousness, to the self, and stay there. See that how peaceful it is to stay in yourself. That is what we have to realize. And then something happens. Then you feel a sense of power and energy in you, a sense of aliveness that comes with it. And that is the real fruit. You can say it's a higher kind of happiness. Usually we are dwelling in a lower kind of happiness, which is very fleeting. It comes and goes. That is the cycle of pain and pleasure. But this higher form of happiness that comes with consciousness is a higher form. It is unshaken, unshakable from anything that is happening around you. That is the beauty of that. You don't get affected by anything. You don't react to anything. You have found something bigger and real, And in front of that, everything else seems very low and small, not worth your time. You don't think of it. You don't want to think of it. It is just not worth your time, because you found something bigger. You found a box of diamonds in you. That is how the passage starts in The Power of Now, the first chapter, first passage. Read that again. We have a box of diamonds and treasure in us. We have to find that. There is a great fulfillment there, great peace that you cannot get anywhere or through anyone. If one can realize this, then one is transcended the pain and suffering. Okay, this is what I want to say. That is my final words. If anyone wants to share, you can. We have 1 more minute. Then I would like to close the session.
I just have a question, or
Yeah.
maybe more a train of thought.
Yeah.
I think there are probably multiple solutions how to deal with the ego, and one that Eckhart suggests is basically to, when the ego comes up, observe it and drop it. So to not go into a discussion with the ego, just let it flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like in the paragraph we read, there was one small sentence was about collective understanding. And I feel often when I observe, oh, now the ego is coming, that I'm doing it with some form of intellectual understanding, which is also the ego. So
Yeah.
Sometimes that's tricky. And lately I was in a conversation with somebody, and the person said, when you have fear, give the fear space, give the fear room in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now, like often I go with the approach that I just think like, okay, I drop it. But maybe I should actually give my ego room, but also not engage with it, just observe it. I don't know. What do you think? Like,
Yes. Yes. So, yes, ultimately, we have to see that our thoughts and our emotions are creating this vibration of negativity and burden and pain, that is from here, from where we experience everything. Because of our thoughts and emotions, they create an experience, right? And in that world of thoughts and emotions, we experience pain, sometimes pleasure, but then again later it converts into pain, or we feel fear or anxiety, jealousy, lust. There are different kinds of emotions that we feel. So ultimately we have to understand that we are not any of these things. So only through observation. So the answer, the solution is not in this level of thoughts and emotions, because a lot of people try to fix at the level of thought and emotion. They say that, you are not thinking right. You should think it like that. Or maybe you should feel it in this way. You should experience something else in life. Then you will feel good. People talk in this language. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a solution in the dimension of form. The dimension of form itself is a problem that people are not understanding. So we are not looking, we are saying that we exist. As a mind and the body, we exist. The ego exists. So all the work starts from this assumption that the mind and the ego exists. And now, since we are facing all these problems, let's see what we can do here in this realm of form. Let's try to fix this person or this place. Maybe we'll go to some new place. We'll bring some new people in our life. Then we will be okay. Whatever we are trying to do in this world, physical world, needs time and space. So it needs some kind of action and thinking to achieve something. So this is our usual way of fixing things. But what Eckhart is saying here, or what the spiritual teaching is saying to us, is that this fundamental I, who has created this form, this world of form of thoughts and emotions, this fundamental identification is wrong. So we don't have to work in this countless possibilities of thoughts and emotions. It is countless. You cannot fix anything here. Something will pop up which will demotivate you, or which will create problem in you. We have to go to the root, to the source, and we have to break this core identification that we have done to the self, which is the identification with thoughts and the body, which we call as the I. We have assumed ourselves as some form. So we have to break this basic identification that we have done with the world of form. Once this ego dissolves, all these thoughts and emotions drop. This whole world of form drops. Automatically it's gone. And this dropping of the ego can only happen through observation. As you said, observation and dissolving the ego. So I would slightly make a correction. There is no time lapse there. The moment you observe, the ego dissolves. Through observation, the ego dissolves. So the ego dissolution is not a second step. It happens with observation. The moment we step back from our thoughts, we observe. Through the process of observation, the stepping back happens automatically. The moment that observation happens, you have jumped out of this realm of form, this realm of movement. And the moment it happens, it is gone. So this is the fundamental spiritual practice. In meditation also, we are trying to do this. And yes, dissolution of the ego is the goal. And through practice of present moment, the more you think, the more you try to energize your emotions and your thoughts, the more problems you will create. Really, the solution is not at that level. We have to jump out of that dimension and become just an observer of everything that is moving. In that observation, slowly everything subsides, and you will see that it did not exist in the first place. It only existed because you are fueling it with your attention or with your identification. Just disidentify, everything drops. It doesn't exist actually. It is unreal dimension. We created this dimension of unreality, non-reality, and now we are suffering in that. It actually doesn't exist. It's all in the mind. So jumping out brings you from unreality to reality, the real dimension of being, which is here and now. And then you see there is no problem at all. What is the problem right now? There is no problem. Okay, there are some work to be done. There is somewhere to go. Something to speak. It could be a challenging situation. You may have to work a bit differently. You may have to raise your voice also. It's okay. But there is no problem actually. The mind turns it into a problem. And then it creates unhappiness. So we can avoid that. It's completely psychological. We may still feel physical pain. If someone hits us, we will feel some pain. That is unavoidable, inevitable. But I have the control of creating psychological pain or not. That is completely under my control. Things in the outside is not in my control. But my internal world, the world of my mind, is in my control. I can completely regulate it and control it. Nothing which can happen outside can actually affect me inside. I have that control. This is the control of consciousness. The power of consciousness, or Eckhart says the power of now. It's synonymous. The power of now means the power of consciousness. So thank you for sharing, Leonie. That was very well said. And now I would like to close the session and request all of you to continue practicing the teaching. Be in touch with the book. You can read it again from chapter 1. It always helps. And we also have the WhatsApp group. You can share anything there, or you can DM me if you have any question or you want to give some insight or share anything. Also, please bring more people in this reading circle. You have all realized that how important this teaching is and how powerful this book is. So I will request you all to spread the word in your circle. And yeah, my website is also almost ready. I will share it with all of you so that you can give me feedback also on the reading circles. Yeah, Ashish, you are saying something.
No, not really. I was just saying thanks to you.
Yeah,
So-
I want to put all the videos in YouTube also. All the recordings are there in my laptop. I just have to find some time and try to put it on YouTube and see how it works there. So I will update all of you. Then you can listen to the sessions again. There is some issue I'm facing with the format. So I'll have to check that. It's a technical thing. Yeah, come back again next Sunday and come to Auroville. It's a beautiful place. I'm doing more reading sessions here. It's always better to talk face to face. So, and I intend to read more books and expand this project and initiative and bring spiritual awareness and conscious living to more people. This is the real solution. We have to do this inner shift and come out of the ego, then only the real change can happen. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.